Welcome to the All49ers Roundtable. Today it's me, So Real Suneil, Gaitonde, Niner Nick Newman making a big triumphant return, and the debut of Waruna Perera. If you're a Cohn phone vet, you know Waruna. He's been
Hi.
around. In his All49ers debut yesterday, wrote his first article. Waruna, thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation.
Waruna.
And before we get started, Nick's been gone for a while. Nick's making his grand re-entrance, and he's got something he wants to say.
Yeah, I mean, this is my first show in the last 6 to 8 weeks, and I've been MIA for a while. I work in the education system, and I coach high school basketball, and the kids went back to school, and our high school season started all at once. So that's why I've been gone for a while, but I'm really excited for today's show and to talk some 49er football. And quickly, I just wanted to shout out Grant for being so accommodating to everybody's schedule. And although I haven't been on the show in a while, just seeing everything that's been going on the channel from the All49ers Junior Roundtable, shout out our boys over there, and the Cohn phone. And the All49ers Lady Roundtable was excellent as well. Yeah. So Grant, shout out to you for all the great work that you're doing and, allowing us all to have this platform, even though so many of us have a lot going on. So I'm excited to be back and talk some ball.
Thanks, man. The umbrella's getting quite large, which is cool. We're a big team. We roll deep. If someone messes with us, they mess with all of us. Anyway,
not to mention he has the biggest channel in the Bay Area. Woo!
Hey!
Not to toot my own horn or anything, but that's my favorite thing to do. All right, let's talk about the Niners and the Super Bowl. This is Waruna's question. Do the Niners really think they're Super Bowl contenders based on the vibes you're getting from them when they talk and when they talk about their expectations? And then subtopic, do you really think they're Super Bowl contenders? Why or why not?
Let's let the rookie go.
All right, Waruna, you're first, baby.
Waruna.
So I honestly do not think they are a Super Bowl contender based on the vibes we are getting. Because if we remember, when we, at the very last minutes during the 2019 Super Bowl, George Kittle was just saying to himself, I will be back, I will be back. He was vouching to himself. But even in the 2020 season, they were saying the same thing, before season starts. And in the probably after fifth game, I remember Kittle saying, this is not the way that we can make to the Super Bowl again, deep in the middle of the season. But right now, they are just saying, okay, we will be back, but really cautious. They don't want to say anything about Super Bowl. They are playing it pretty safe in a conservative manner. So I don't think team is 100% confident of being on a Super Bowl run. Just they are trying to make sure that they will have a good season. If they can make it to playoffs, they will do it. But always get to the playoffs, have a winning season. That might be the idea they are having. So that's what I think.
Maybe they just don't want to jinx it this year. Maybe they feel that the revenge tour thing jinxed it. I don't know. Good answer, Waruna. Thank you. Hey, my bad. Sorry, it's just great minds. Go ahead.
Stealing my thunder right off the bat. I definitely think that the team in the front office believes that they're Super Bowl contenders. How could they not? And again, going back to you, just stealing my thunder. Last year, they were super in everybody's face about the revenge tour, and they had that Super Bowl loss. It was fresh in everybody's minds, and they put extra pressure on themselves by everybody hashtagging revenge tour. And I think that the players, the front office believe that they're Super Bowl contenders for the same reason that the fan base believes that they're Super Bowl contenders. As long as they stay healthy, they still have one of the most complete teams in the NFL. I truly believe that. And I'm going to kind of save some of my fire here with this question, because I know some of our other questions or topic discussions coming up kind of trickle in to this, but I definitely think that the players and coaches believe that they're Super Bowl contenders because they were just there 2 years ago. And you can make the strong argument the only reason why they weren't in the playoffs last year is because the team completely crumbled. So here we go again, using the slogan, when healthy. Yes, when healthy, the 49ers are absolutely Super Bowl contenders.
Niner Nick coming in with a bang. I love it. So I am on the same page as Niner Nick. I think the team definitely believe they're Super Bowl contenders. And the reason for that is just the makeup of the team. They pretty much brought back everybody that was a big contributor to that 2019 team. And then they also plugged in whatever holes that were there that made them kind of slide off last year, namely in the running game with the offensive line, and really secured those type of spots. Not to mention, they just went all in on a quarterback, trading away their next 2 years of draft picks, and their coach only has 2 or 3 more years on their contract. So I don't believe this is the makeup of a team that believes they're rebuilding, or a team or a staff that believes they have another 5-6 years or 3-4 years to really become Super Bowl contenders. I believe everybody thinks they're Super Bowl. They're going for the Super Bowl this year. And as far as me, I believe the same thing. I think that this team has one of the best rosters, and the only thing that's really going to derail them is injuries. Now, obviously, injuries have kicked their butt, 4 out of the last 5 seasons, or even more than that. But if they can overcome when healthy, like Nick said, I believe this is a Super Bowl contending team, and I believe that the league believes that as well. So
I think they believe that they have a Super Bowl roster in the sense of like 2 through 55, like quarterback aside. I think they really do. I mean, especially their starting lineup. I don't think they have the depth they used to have, but I think the reason that they expressed more confidence last year than outwardly than they are this year is I think that's usually a function of the quarterback position. Like last year, even though Jimmy Garoppolo came up short in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, he had a good year. And there was a lot of narrative like, well, this is Jimmy's second full season. He's going to take this leap. He's going to be an MVP candidate. There was a lot of confidence in him. I mean, the Niners could have had Tom Brady, and they were like, nah, we're going to stick with Jimmy Garoppolo because he has upside. And now all that confidence is gone. He's a bridge quarterback. His replacement's in the building. And so I think like the Niners realize it's either going to be Jimmy Garoppolo making an improbable run to the Super Bowl or a rookie making an improbable run to the Super Bowl. So the future is bright, and this year could be a playoff season. But I think if you don't have the quarterback position nailed down, then, I mean, really, how are you going to look at yourself as a true Super Bowl contender?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll nail it down in the next couple of months, but right now it's up in the air. That's all I'm saying.
That's a good point. And Grant, to kind of elaborate what you were talking about them being really deep, 2 through 53,
yeah,
the front office has to be shocked that they were able to bring back DJ Jones, K'Wan Williams, Jaquaski Tartt on. Those are 3 starters on the vet minimum that came back, so they really lucked out. And that's why part of the reason why I believe that the front office knows that this is a Super Bowl contending roster, because the offseason broke well in their favor, and they really just got to go all out to capitalize on that.
I think they certainly could be Super Bowl. Before we move on, the NFC is wide open. It's like Tampa, and I don't really think much of Green Bay. I mean, they're very top heavy with Aaron Rodgers making 20%. He's not even on the team right now. Seattle, they're very top heavy with Russell Wilson making 17% of the cap. I mean, after Tampa Bay, it's kind of wide open. It could be the Niners. I have my questions, but definitely a wide open conference. Let's move on. Kind of the same theme, though. What is the biggest difference between this 49ers team and last year's 49ers team that went 6-10? Suneil, why don't you start us off this time? We'll go the opposite direction.
I'm going to go trenches. I'm down here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go the trenches. Definitely the offensive line, bringing back Trent Williams, and then signing Alex Mack, bringing in Banks, who I think is going to be an instant contributor to that offensive line, and then also having the depth there, bringing in a lot of another rookie, and then bringing in the people they brought in the offseason as well. I think that offensive line is going to be a lot more productive this year, and then also all the changes that they made on the defensive line, bringing in a lot of speed, because I think the biggest issue that the 49ers have had on the defensive line has been being able to contain the quarterback. That's been their biggest Achilles heel on defense, is a mobile quarterback. Pretty much quarterbacks that stay in the pocket, they've been able to contain. They've been able to dominate. But it's those mobile quarterbacks that they have a hard time keeping in the pocket. Now they brought a lot of speed on the outside. I think that's going to be huge in maintaining that pocket, keeping those quarterbacks at bay. And I think we're going to see a lot of changes as far as being able to keep the score low with the defense, giving the offense an opportunity to really develop if they start Lance and he's not world beater immediately. So I think those are the biggest changes.
Good answer.
The biggest change for me is just how much the quarterback room has evolved over the course of the last 12 months, going from Garoppolo, Mullins, Beathard, Brock Rutter to Garoppolo. Now you have Trey Lance and Josh Rosen, Nate Sudfeld. So the evolvement of the quarterback room is definitely the biggest difference, in my opinion, as far as how much this roster has come along over the course of the last year. And having two competent, capable quarterbacks is going to go such a long way for this team. And if you look back at last season, the 49ers finished 6-10. If they had better quarterback play, if their QB2 play was better, there's no doubt in my mind that they would have been in the playoffs. If you look at the Eagles game, you look at the game against the Saints, they had an opportunity to win that game. And Nick Mullens had 3 turnovers, I believe. Trent Taylor dropped that one punt. There was that miscommunication. Then the Cowboys game, the Washington football team where Nick Mullens had that ugly pick 6. Those were all winnable games where if you just had a little bit better quarterback play, the 49ers would have been in the playoffs. So I love the fact that they have two quarterbacks who can get the job done. And even if Trey Lance isn't that great of a passer, just the ability to make plays with his legs is going to go such a long way. And I go back to when the Ravens and Steelers played on a Wednesday, one of those funky COVID games. I don't remember, or I don't know if you guys remember this game or not. But RG3 started that game. It wasn't Lamar Jackson. I think he was in COVID protocol. And even though Griffin had a horrific day throwing the football, couldn't throw football to save his life, just his ability to make plays with his legs kept the Ravens in that game. And they could have went into halftime with the lead. And it was when John Harbaugh had horrible clock management. They had the ball at the 1-yard line, and they didn't end up scoring a touchdown or getting any points at all with like 15 seconds left or something like that. So having a second quarterback who can not only throw but make plays with his legs, those two quarterbacks, that's going to take the team to a new level. And you really have a buffer there where if one of the quarterbacks goes down, you're pretty confident that the team is still in good hands. So that is by far the biggest difference, in my opinion, from last year to right now.
I mean, I'm also going to agree with Suneil and here.
Nick.
So basically, the quarterback position is the most upgraded one. I mean, if you think about having Rosen as a backup is a real plus because he can be a difference maker in this situation. I mean, as we discussed last year, if we had Andy Dalton, we could have easily been a 10-16 rather than 6-10 team. So that's one thing. And other thing would be the running back department. I think that is where our strength is. So I think those are two on par. Basically, you can't say. I mean, while quarterback room is, strengthened, the running back room is also really strengthened. So these two go in combination because it is our strength. So I believe that's where we have built up our strides. So to at least have a season that we can reach up to that 10 game margin, 10-7 record, I think that will help.
Good answer. I hadn't thought about the running backs. Also the offensive line, the addition of Alex Mack, the addition of Aaron Banks. They doubled up on the interior. They doubled up at running back. They doubled up at quarterback. They really, every position they needed to, they got multiple players. I'm going to say something negative because you guys all went positive. I'm just trying to balance that out.
Wait, Grant Cohn going negative?
I'm just trying to balance. I'm just trying to balance. So it seems to me that you guys are very impressed with all the ways that the Niners have made strides, but I want to just point out that they also lost Robert Saleh this offseason. And that's a big loss. Yeah. We don't really know what DeMeco Ryans is going to bring. He could be fantastic, but maybe not right away. I think that's significant. It's as significant as the gains they've made. They could cancel out. Who knows? Or maybe DeMeco's better. Who knows? But for now, I think the loss of Robert Saleh is definitely bears watching. We don't know what to expect from DeMeco. And it's not that he won't connect with players. It's not. I'm sure the Niners defense will play very hard for him. The question is, how's his game plan going to be? How are his play calls going to be? And how are his adjustments going to be? And I would imagine that those things would all improve with experience the way they did with Robert Saleh. But, how many games are they going to lose because he's a rookie? So that's one. That's it.
One thing I want
That's a good point.
What
One thing to add to that is like even last year, Salah struggled against mobile quarterbacks, right?
Right.
So those are the games that Josh Allen basically demolished us, right? It was embarrassing.
No answer. Yeah.
Right? So I think Salah still had some weaknesses last year. So because we remember only the improvements of Salah.
That's true.
So I don't think in that level, the way D'Amico Ryans has brought up these players like Fred Warner, developed that linebacker group. So he doesn't have a level to go beyond that. So I think the base minimum level will be achieved whether Salah is here or not.
Okay. And Salah groomed this guy, and so did Kyle Shanahan, and they all think he's good. So maybe he's going to exceed expectations. Maybe there's no reason to think he'll be bad. All right, let's move on. This morning I went on Twitter and said that the Niners really can't become Super Bowl contenders until they dump Jimmy Garoppolo's contract. And I have reasons. I mean, he's at 13.5% of the Niners cap right now. It was never supposed to be that high. Remember, the cap went down because of the pandemic. Every team's in a tough spot. He was supposed to be in the mid-12s, which is still Hall of Fame territory. That's elite quarterback territory. But when they gave him the contract, there was the projection that he was going to get there. He got hurt. He never did. Do you think the Niners would be better off just clearing the contract, and then using the cap space on multiple starters, which I think they could? There's a lot of guys who are still available on free agency and guys they could trade for. Or do they need him? Waruna, your turn.
Yeah, I really like the idea. Basically, from the day onwards that we drafted Trey Lance, whether he's going to have some problems that rookie quarterback going to have or not, I was really positive on the idea that we should either trade Jimmy or cut Jimmy, because it doesn't make any sense. Because we talked about this earlier as well. The argument that everyone is making now, this is a Super Bowl year. Jimmy took us to the Super Bowl in 2019, right? But let's take about one of our rivals in NFC West, LA Rams. Jared Goff. He took Rams to the Super Bowl back in 2018. And his first two seasons were like 13-3, 11-5 something. So basically, under Sean McVay, Jared Goff has a record of 42-20.
Right.
So Jimmy's record is 22-8. So there is a one problem that with the argument that people are making, 22-8. Usually, let's say if you flip a coin twice and it turns head, it's 100% head. Now you can make argument if you flip a coin, it will always be a head, but it's wrong. You have to do a proper experiment, come up with a proper evaluation. You have to do at least 1,000 times flip a coin. Then with the correct data set, the larger the data set, then you have more accurate results or evaluation. So Jimmy over these years only played 30 games. It's not enough because it's like just 2 seasons, right? It's like basically this guy is still on honeymoon. So he hasn't faced the realities of the marriage life yet. So that's why I believe that 49ers should move on from Jimmy, even though it looks hard. It looks like a betrayal for the quarterback that took us to the Super Bowl. But we can't do that anymore. To win a Super Bowl, we need a proper quarterback. We have to just test the waters, put Trey Lance over there, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Nick, what do you think?
This specific season, there is no way that the 49ers are more of a Super Bowl contender without Jimmy Garoppolo. If you were to trade him before free agency or before Julio Jones was available, yes. But right now, if you clear that cap space, what's it going toward? The Fred Warner extension? Grant, right before you opened up this question, you talked about maybe with that money, you can add a few free agents that can come in and start. I don't think there's any free agents available that are better than any of the 49ers' current starters at any given position, except for maybe the wide receiver 3 positions week. I don't even know off the top of my head who's available right there. I think that the roster this upcoming season is so sound. as it is, that being able to have the luxury of having two very good quarterbacks, like I talked about last segment, is way more valuable and than anything else that could possibly happen. And looking ahead at 2022, the short answer is yes, of course, they're going to be better off moving Garoppolo. I believe they clear $24.2 million. That's what they would clear next offseason, moving on from Garoppolo, and then being able to allocate that money to build a stronger supporting cast around Trey Lance is a no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer. But for the immediate season, they are so much better off keeping Jimmy Garoppolo, having two quarterbacks. And let's say if Garoppolo's not even the starter, if he gets beat out by Trey Lance, we've had bad luck. We being the 49ers. The 49ers have had bad luck with Garoppolo's injuries over the last few years. In the terrible circumstance that Lance gets hurt, you know you have another starting caliber, NFL starting caliber quarterback behind him in Garoppolo. So it just makes so much more sense to me to hold on to him this upcoming season. And then you unload him next offseason, clear up that money, and spend it however the hell you want. But you keep Jimmy Garoppolo this year.
Passionate Nick is my favorite Nick. When we talked about this, I think this was maybe Nick's last show, is whether or not we should keep Jimmy G or trade him. And this was before we actually drafted Trey Lance. We just knew there was going to be a rookie being drafted. I was one of the biggest proponents, like, get rid of Jimmy G and start the rookie. But when we're answering this specific question, I'm kind of with Nick on this one. Like, especially if we're just dumping Jimmy and cutting him, I think that's just a waste, because you're not getting anything out of that. Which free agent did we not get because we had Jimmy's contract on our books? I don't think we really got outbid by anybody on anybody that we really wanted. I think we actually got everybody that we were targeting, and we didn't really miss out on anybody because we didn't have enough money. Maybe not enough draft capital, but it wasn't because we didn't have enough money. So I think I don't think that keeping Jimmy or dumping Jimmy actually improves our Super Bowl odds. Much like Nick said, next season is a completely different story. But if we're just focusing in on this year, nothing we get from Jimmy is going to affect this year's Super Bowl window. If we do trade him and we even get a first rounder or a second rounder, hopefully, fingers crossed, that's just going to help in the future years. But as far as this year, that money on the books isn't going to get us anybody that we absolutely need. And I think we're going to possibly get even a higher draft pick keeping him on the team than we would have if we traded him on the offseason, because more than likely somebody's starting quarterback is going to go down injured, and they're going to be looking for a bona fide starter. Jimmy G is still a quality starter in the league, and especially if Trey Lance is playing well, he's going to be able to be there midseason for a trade, and we possibly could, get a higher pick than if we would have just traded him in the offseason when there wasn't a big need for him. So I think that to answer the question, no, dumping Jimmy this season doesn't affect the Super Bowl window, but definitely next season he needs to go.
Hey, Grant, is it cool if I piggyback off of Suneil real quick? And then I have a question for you regarding this exact topic.
Sure.
Yeah, so before the draft, this is a scenario that I laid out before the draft. I had Joe Shasky and Bonte Hill from 95.7 The Game on my podcast, and I said before this even happened that a scenario really growing on me was drafting Trey Lance at 3 and keeping Jimmy Garoppolo for all of the reasons that I just mentioned. And Suneil, you just touched on it too, that let's just say the 49ers cut Garoppolo right now. Is that going to be more beneficial this year? Let's just say he has another 2019-like season this year. He's going to get moved for a first or second round pick. If the Tua Tagovailoa experiment doesn't work out with the Dolphins, it sounds like he's off to a miserable camp right now. And you look at the Washington football team, those are two teams who could use a quarterback that has big game experience. And now, Grant, this is the question that I have for you because I know this is something you do a lot of digging on. What's the cap number? Quarterbacks never won a Super Bowl higher than what cap hit percentage?
13.1%. Steve Young did it. Steve Young did it in 94. And then the only other guys who've done it with like double digit, like 10 plus are Favre, Peyton, Eli, and Brady. Yeah. So when Rodgers won, it was below. When Breeze won, it was below. When Elway won, it was below. When Aikman won, it was below.
That all makes sense. So it looks like there's two possibilities here that the 49ers have some of the best Super Bowl odds out right now. So it's either if it does happen, it's going to be either a rookie quarterback winning the Super Bowl for the first time or a quarterback making over 13.1% of his team's cap percentage doing it. So it's kind of like a pick your poison type thing. Both things have been done before, the rookie quarterback and the 13.8 cap hit percentage. So you just got to pick your poison and move on. But I think the 49ers are definitely better off with Garoppolo on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be cool with keeping Garoppolo if he were making the money he were making in 2019. In 2019, his cap percentage was 8.6. That's totally reasonable for him. That's really reasonable. At 13.5, now you're asking him to be an anomaly, to break a record, to do something no one else has done. And it's like he could, but like he's a bridge quarterback anyway. And the scary thing about him is if he doesn't have a 2019 season, if he gets hurt again, now you can't move him at all. That money is dead money. You can't trade him midseason. You just got to live with $27 million on the bench or on IR, which is a big reason the Niners have had losing seasons 2 of the last 3 years because of him and his money on the bench or on IR. So it seems to me that the reason he's on the team is because the Niners are saying he gives them their best chance to win a Super Bowl. I disagree. I think he's too expensive. You could lower the cap number by extending him, but you don't want to do that either. So if you agree that you're either going to have to win with some guy making the most money ever as a Super Bowl winner or the youngest quarterback ever being a Super Bowl winner, that's a tough spot to be in. But I'll go with the kid and just let him get because he's the future anyway. And Jimmy's on borrowed time. I just feel like you said there's no one they could sign. Well, I mean, they could sign Melvin Ingram. They could sign Justin Houston. They could sign Malik Hooker. There are guys that they could sign who would at least increase their depth because in 2019 they had more of that. So that's my spiel. I understand that you guys are against it, but we'll see what the Niners do. Let's put it this way. Let's say Trey Lance beats him out in preseason. Would you rather have Jimmy Garoppolo hanging around as $27 million backup insurance, or would you move on at that point?
Ooh, I'd keep him on the team because at this point, I don't think that it'll just be money that's not spent, and like money that's not spent.
Well, that would be bad. That would be bad. They would have to spend the freaking money.
Yeah. So I don't really see. And there's this whole thing that the depth on the 49ers is so bad. I don't know who was on the team before that was so much better than the backups now. Like I don't really see where this depth thing is. Like we had so many of these starters behind that were sitting in the wings and all that. That's not true. Like all the depth pieces we had were all
Greenlaw stepped up.
Right, but we have those. Nobody knew that Greenlaw was
Mosley was a backup when he started the season.
Nobody knew that Mosley was Mosley when we had him. Like nobody was like, man, our backups are so good. Like Dre Greenlaw, he could be a starter. E-Man, he could be a starter. No, these are like really low draft picks or undrafted people, and we have that same type of players that are backing up our starters right now. So
was good depth. I mean, who's the Niners starting wide receiver if Deebo Samuel misses 8 games?
Yeah.
They don't have one. I'm sorry. Waruna, do you have something you wanted to add, or Nick?
Yeah, I just wanted to say now, everyone believes, Jimmy, what if Jimmy has a good year? That sentence includes a big if. What if? But if you remember the first game last year against Cardinals, Jimmy was awful. Yeah. He wasn't injured back then, right? He got injured in the second or third game. So that's a problem. We cannot depend on Jimmy because if we take any other quarterback in this league, top 10 quarterback, we know. That's why Rams went for Matthew Stafford for that blockbuster deal because they needed something solid. But Jimmy is a real variable. You don't know whether, and most especially, Jimmy can't play if he is even 10% injured. That's the other problem. Because if you remember the Dolphins game that he threw these interceptions, he was awful, right? Because he wasn't in rhythm. So Jimmy needs 100% everything going for him, not just himself, things around him.
Yep.
Because how many games in 2019 that team bailed out for him? In the Rams game, we won 20-7, defense holdout, and he threw an interception just by the goal line. So team always stepped better than him. But that's my question. Is it fair to keep that player? Because quarterback is the most important position in the all of sports that I know. So are we going to stick with this guy?
I guess I don't understand who's the Who's the person that's saying Jimmy G is going to be our long-term starter with the 49ers?
Well,
Nobody's saying that. We're talking about a 1 year. If Trey Lance beats him, then we have the best backup quarterback in the league, right? We have a person that could be a bona fide starter that's taken a team to the Super Bowl, kind of like how Carson Wentz and Nick Foles was. You know, Carson Wentz got injured going into the playoffs. Nick Foles could come in, and they still were able to win a Super Bowl. Yeah. I think that's the similar type of vibe that we're talking about. And then next year, I guarantee you, Jimmy G's not on the team. It's the Trey Lance team for sure next year, possibly this year. And that's what we're all saying. Like, cutting Jimmy G right now, what does that do for us? It's wasted money that's not going to come in. There's no guys out there that we can't get right now with the money that we have.
I'm right there with you, Suneil, but I think if you do cut him, that money that you do save this year carries over to next year, so that it will get spent, from my understanding, at some point. But you really have to balance out is having that. You have to balance out is having that second capable quarterback worth it, and I do think it is. Grant, you touched on who was it, Melvin Ingram and Justin.
You could trade for Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah. But still, it's like you have two starting cornerbacks, in Mosley and Verrett. And if either of them go down, Jack Hammer proposed the question, which positional group concerns you the most? I don't think we have that specific question ready to go tonight, but my answer for it was the outside cornerback spot. So that's definitely a position that you look to upgrade from. But I think just based on the pass rush, if they're able to be even 7/10 of what they were in 2019, how much stress that takes off the secondary shoulders, I really am just sticking with having that second quarterback after what this team went through last year is one of the most valuable things you could have. How much more? What's the? Yeah,
I just feel like spending $27 million on your number two quarterback's a little bit of a misallocation.
It's already done though, so we're not like
it's not though. It's not though. There are so many people that are available. There are.
How do you get Stephon Gilmore?
Melvin,
with what pick?
With a second round pick.
They're gonna give up a second round for 1 year. Like, that's not gonna happen now. That's all this stuff was in the offseason. We could have done it. Now it's already too late.
There are so many players that are available right now that are gonna get signed right before the season. I mean, every year there are a flurry of starter caliber role players in their 30s who signed right before training camp. In 2011, when the Niners went 13-3, they signed Carlos Rogers in August. They signed Dante Whitner in August. It's not over. They're definitely gonna be more moves.
But that specific off season was coming off of a lockout. So that's why all those players were signed in August because, that specific year where there was these starting caliber players, I know that was the year of the lockout when Harbaugh first took over. But anyway, going back to Suneil's point about trading a second round pick for Stephon Gilmore, they didn't make a formal offer as far as any of us know for Julio Jones, who went for a second rounder. So where does Kyle Shanahan value Stephon Gilmore in comparison to Julio Jones if they didn't give that up?
They can't afford Julio Jones with Jimmy Garoppolo on the team.
Well, I don't know Gilmore's cap it off the top of my head, but
Grant, do you feel like there's players out there that we're not going to get? Yes. No. That 49ers want to get, but they can't get because they don't have enough money.
They have $17 million in cap space, but they haven't signed Lance yet. Mm-hmm. So that's some of that goes to him, and then they. I mean, what? No, they have to extend Fred Warner's contract too. That's more. So I don't really think they can make moves right now.
But what I'm saying is, do you think there's these big holes on the team that they need to fill that they can't fill because they don't have enough money?
I think this team isn't a Super Bowl contender right now. I think if Jason Verrett gets hurt, the team is screwed. If Nick Bosa gets hurt again or isn't the same, team is screwed. I think they're walking a tightrope right here. They're one injury of Jason Verrett away from being so bad in the secondary. And if you could not spend 13.5% of your cap on a serviceable quarterback and put that on like a better starter next to Verrett, that would be good. But we've done 15 minutes on this topic. We should probably move on. You guys made good points. I'm not trying to change your mind. Go ahead.
Who is going to be the punt returner, kick returner? That's some area that we did not discuss this year all along. Last year we were awful in that area. We didn't use Brandon Ayuk for that. Right. So that's another question coming in. That's the area that we lost some games.
That's true. The Niners certainly don't win games on special teams. Pinor says, or Pinor, I don't know how to pronounce that, says, is it fair to say that nobody wants Jimmy, not just for his injuries or lack talent, but since 2011, the talent level of a starting quarterback has risen? I don't think anyone wants Jimmy's contract. Call me crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And nobody wants that contract right now until they need it, right? Until it's a need. So if one of these quarterbacks goes down on a team, Nick said 2 teams that are great options in Washington and Miami, that's when you trade them. But right now, it's you're trading low, right? And we bought high. So
Teams don't have cap space though because the cap went down. So to get Jimmy, you'd have to extend him. And I don't know how many teams want to extend him coming off an injury-plagued season. That's the problem right there. Yeah. All right, let's talk about Raheem Moser because we don't talk about the running backs enough. What is the ideal role for Raheem Moser in the Niners offense? And this is something that Nick tweeted about. So why don't you start us off?
All right. Raheem Mostert. So I've seen a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people suggest that the 49ers should trade Raheem Mostert because he's making $3.6 million, I believe, this upcoming season. He's the 15th highest paid running back in the NFL. I'm a huge fan of Raheem Mostert. He makes the 49ers offense better, but I do think that they should decrease his role a little bit. If you look at his role in 2019, the season that really put Raheem Mostert on the map, in the first couple of games, between weeks 1 through 11, he only had 82 touches when it was right around 7.5 touches per game. And then his workload really increased starting that Ravens game all the way through the Super Bowl where he was getting 14 touches a game. He had 126 touches throughout however many games that was. And then last year, he all of a sudden started touching the ball 15 times and his body didn't hold up well. So I would love to see Raheem Mostert continue to be the 49ers top running back, their starting running back, but just because he's the starting running back doesn't mean that he has to get the most touches on the team week in and week out. He was still very efficient weeks 1 through 11 of the 2019 regular season. He had like 4 games where he went over 40 yards out of the first 7 games of the year, and he is the fastest football player in the NFL. They chip all these guys now. He is the undisputed fastest player in the NFL. He can take the ball the distance whenever he has the opportunity to, and that is such a valuable asset to have on offense that I have no problem keeping Raheem Mostert because of his big playability. Even though he may seem a little overpaid, just what he can do on offense and just take the top off of a defense and give them all this to worry about is worth it. But you got to decrease his role.
Okay, who's next?
I'll go. So, I'm the biggest proponent for the running back squad. I said that we needed to draft somebody in the top 3 round picks, wrote articles on it on for Sports Illustrated and so on and so forth. And they went ahead and got Trey Sermon. And Sermon, I think, needs to come in and play that Tevin Coleman role that was there in 2019. Because if we remember what the rotation was in 2019, we had Coleman, Breida, and Mostert. And those three-headed monster is why that running game was the second rated running game in the whole league. And I think that having that player like Coleman that could take a brunt of the first down, second down, first quarter, second quarter when the defenses are fresh and take those hits is what gave Breida and Mostert the ability to hit those home runs and have those big play abilities. And I think that's the way that we need to be utilizing Raheem Mostert, is not as the every down back, but as that person that could come in and just have like 10 touches and still have like 2 touchdowns, and all of them were over 30-yard gains, so on and so forth, and really just force feed Gallman and Sermon, and then just have that big playability with Mostert. Because the unfortunate part is Mostert is amazing as long as he can stay healthy. Problem is he's really small for a running back. He can't take all that added, all those added hits. And if he's injured, his number one thing is speed. He can't be that elusive running back that makes him the star that he's potentially could be. So I think, just like Nick said, reduce, but I don't even want to see him as a starter. I want to see him just getting very few touches, but in those opportune moments that could have him be that home run player that just needs a few touches and still is a very productive receiver. I know very productive running back. I know it's going to suck for people that draft him in fantasy, but I think that's the role he needs to play.
I totally agree with Nick and Suneil on this. Basically, I think last year we were desperate. Kyle was desperate because the quarterbacks were going down, they were injured, so he needed other players to step up. So he started using Raheem more, but it backfired. But I think this year, until we go into the business end, meaning into the playoffs, we should really use Raheem Moser with the caution. So if we are in the playoff, then we can use like the championship game against the Green Bay. That's the only time we should use it. Basically, preserve him for the most important moments in the game. Other than that, just use Sermon, Elijah Mitchell, Goldman, anyone that you think. Because one thing we know of is that 49ers have a very good running back coach. So we have a good scheme. So whatever the player that going to put in that field can perform compared to other things. So we should preserve most as much as possible.
You guys make good points, but I'm going to go ahead and disagree with all three of you. I think you guys are being a little too cautious with Raheem Mostert. I mean, look, he's not that small. I will compare him to Chris Johnson. All right, Chris Johnson, when we were younger, had a lot of good years. He was 5'11", 195. Raheem Mostert is 5'10", 195. I think they have a lot in common. Chris Johnson started 111 games in the NFL, had 2,163 carries, right? Mostert has started 8 games in his career and ran the ball 282 times. What are you saving him for? He's 29 years old. You got to use him now. And the thing about him is, yeah, you want to lower his workload for sure. But he's still the best running back on the team. I like Trey Sermon. He's better than Trey Sermon. They didn't get Trey Sermon to replace Raheem Mostert. They got Trey Sermon to replace Tevin Coleman. And Raheem Mostert always was better than Tevin Coleman. So you want to play your best players. You want to start Raheem Mostert. You don't want to give him 17 carries a game. You probably don't even want to give him 15. But starting with 13 carries a game, anything less than that, I think you're wasting him. He's 29 years old, man. Put him out there.
Yeah, but you picked – so Chris was a really great running back, but you talked about when he came into the league as a rookie. After he signed his big contract, he wasn't that guy anymore. And Raheem Mostert might not have had a lot of starts as a running back, but what was he doing in the league all of those years? He was on special teams.
Special teams.
And
Chris Johnson carried the ball like 800 times before he slowed down. I mean, he got worn down. He got overused. He had a season where he ran the ball 358 times. No one's saying that they're going to use him.
You're comparing a 22, 23-year-old to a 29-year-old. That's already come off of a whole year of being injured. He just was injured all last season, Grant. What are we watching?
Wow. He was injured all last season, and he also averaged 5 yards a carry last year. He missed 8 games last year. But so did George Kittle. No one's wringing their hands, clutching their pearls about George Kittle, who's the same age, a year younger. I mean, the guy averages 5.6 yards per carry for his career. Yeah. I'm not saying you don't give him 6 carries a game. You don't give him 9 carries a game. He's your best running back by far. If Trey Sermon is a good replacement of Tevin Coleman, great. Now you got a two-headed monster, but I think you guys are being way too cautious on Raheem Mostert, man.
Well, this is what I'd say is giving Raheem Mostert 9 touches a game is a lot different than giving a guy like Ezekiel Elliott or someone 9 touches a game. His 9 touches at 5 yards a carry and being able to take the ball 20-plus yards anytime he touches it, he's a lot more efficient in a limited number of touches than him getting the ball 15 times. Like, take the Rams game last year, the home game against the Rams, Sunday Night Football. He touched the ball 17 times, and I think his 17th carry came early in the third quarter, and he got hurt because he was getting the ball too much. And I think he had an injury, like he missed, what was it, the Giants game? Because he played that Jets game where he had the 80-yard touchdown run. So we missed the Giants game and the Eagles game, and he came back a couple weeks later and re-aggravated his injury. But I think that's too much. I think the window between 10 to 12 carries a game is realistic. It's just as far as longevity goes, because now it's a 17-game regular season. You have the postseason. You got to keep Raheem Mostert fresh.
Should the Niners bring George Kittle off the bench because he missed 8 games last year? Should the Niners have Nick Bosa come off the bench because he missed 15 games last year? At a certain point, you got to let these dudes play, no?
But yes, and this is my counterpoint to that, is that Raheem Moser is at his best, or was at his best, when he was in that limited role. And ever since his roles kind of changed, he wasn't able to duplicate the success that he had in 2019 last season, being that every down player, whereas George Kittle, he is an established every down player.
He averaged 5 yards a carry last year. He just got hurt. I mean, you could say that he did.
Yeah.
He could say he did. He just got hurt the way Kittle did.
Okay. But it's not performance based. Of course, the performance is lined up, his averages and everything, to what it was in 2019. But he needs to be on the field. And I get what you're saying with the Kittle. It's a good comparison.
I think we're arguing over like two carries a game. We're just getting worked up. I think we're basically saying 13 and you guys are saying 11 and we're like, no, So hold on. I think we can wrap this up and move on to the last one. Frederick's saying, your bottle of wine for Trey starting to pick up steam. I'm trying to speak it into existence, man. I want that bottle of wine, and I'm betting on Trey starting week 1. Nick says, will Sermon get 1,000 yards and or 10 TDs? I think it's going to be a real court running back committee, so I wouldn't necessarily be banking on big numbers or fantasy stats from all these guys. All right, final topic. This is one that everyone wants to talk. No, I like this one. Nick Mullens. What went wrong here? The Niners went from turning down trade offers from Nick Mullens, reportedly, to not even to just letting him go and signing Nate Sudfeld to replace him. Wow, what a 12 months. What went wrong here? Whoever feels moved to speak can start.
Go ahead. Yeah, Waruna, this is your question. You go ahead. I'll hop in after you.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Now, you mentioned in the practices, Nick Mullens does better than Jimmy, right? So when anyone looks at practices,
Jimmy's not very good at practice.
Right. Yeah. So here's what I'm seeing from Nick. Now, you have not his place. Now, Nick Mullens has a big heart, and he's a tough guy. I mean, last year, all his offensive line was bad, but he was getting beaten play after play, but he got up, played. He basically risked his life for this team. That's what he did. Now, if you look at his facial expressions, body language, that tells the story. Do you remember that he was saying after one game, I'm a good quarterback if I do not turn the ball away, right? Yeah. But he doesn't believe that in himself, because if you remember, 2019 Super Bowl, Mahomes was sacked. The NFL Films they released that video after the Super Bowl, just a small clip. Mahomes was on the sidelines. He was pumping his chest, saying, "I'm a beast. I'm a beast. Hit me, hit me." That was his attitude. Have you ever seen Nick Mullens does that? When he does a mistake, he goes into a deep hole. You talked about Mike McGlinchey going into that rabbit hole, going into a deeper end that nobody, only the player can come back from that. So that's the reason. In practices, you have time. You don't have that actual game situation, scenario. So you can do whatever you want and show people that you can actually do it, you have the potential. But when it comes to the game, if you make a mistake, and it affects you. Remember, if Nick Mullens has a good game, he continues to have a good game. I think Giants game, he threw for like 330 odd yards or something. But Eagles game, first pass, he overthrew Kyle Juszczyk. Then he was out of rhythm. That's the problem. That's what I saw in Nick Mullens. A player, even though he thinks that he has the ability in his self, when it goes out there, he does not trust himself. So I'm not saying Nick Mullens is a top 10 quarterback, a great quarterback. He's a backup quarterback for a reason, but he could have been done better if he fixed his mental aspect of his game.
He's too hard on himself.
Yes.
As opposed to Jimmy, who's like, I'll get him next time. And you like that about Jimmy. Sometimes I'm like, Jimmy, you should care a little more. Nick cares entirely too much. It's like, dude, let yourself off the hook, Nick. Nick, what are you thinking?
I'll tell you my perspective of everything. So 2018, he's the third quarterback on the roster, right?
Yeah.
And when you're the third quarterback on the roster and you're on a losing football team, there's zero expectations. Nick Mullens took over CJ Beathard his first start, Thursday Night Football against the Raiders, lit them up. When you're the third quarterback of a losing football team, no pressure, no expectations. You're just going out there and playing football. 2019, he was riding pine behind Garoppolo, who was all healthy all year. We didn't see any of Mullins in 2019. The 49ers turned down trade offers for him going into the 2020 season. There's some pressure right there because this team believes in you enough to hold on to you. So there's some more weight on your shoulders. Now, 2020, when he starts playing, this is not Mr. Nick Mullens, the cute underdog story where he's the third quarterback on a losing football team. He's now expected to keep this team in the playoff hunt, to keep this team afloat while Garoppolo's out. He did it the second half against the Jets. He did it the Giants game. And then once the pressure picked up and he was in the spotlight Sunday Night Football against the Eagles, there was a stretch of games where he was just awful. And I think that he was exposed. The bottom line is that Nick Mullens was exposed. We saw him for the type of quarterback that he really was, because quarterbacks are made in those big moments. And it's not like he was just making these erratic passes, which he was, and all these turnovers, just players that are wide open. Waruna, you brought up the missed pass to Kyle Juszczyk. We saw that all too often. The Washington football game, the pick six to Cameron Curl, where he was eyeing down Kyle Juszczyk. He's not a big-time quarterback, and I was deceived by Nick Mullens. I had Nick Mullens' back this time last season thinking that, hey, maybe Mullens can give Garoppolo a run for his money. He did all this in 2018. Here he is lighting up the Giants and the Jets, which the Jets isn't saying much, but the Giants were a serviceable defense last year as the season progressed. I just think that Nick Mullens showed his true colors as the pressure and the spotlight got bigger, and he could not do what he did when there was no pressure at all in 2018.
Wow, this is by far the most in-depth breakdowns of Nick Mullens ever in the history of ever. Nobody's talking about Nick Mullens the way that you two just talked about Nick Mullens, and probably Grant's about to talk about Nick Mullens. I think this is way simpler than anybody just did. Nick Mullens was an undrafted quarterback that made it into the league and is a great story. The reason why he's not on the team right now is because of what Lynch said earlier in the offseason. Basically, the quarterback room needs to stay healthy. And they already have one quarterback that's injury prone in Jimmy G. They can't have a backup that's injury prone in Nick Mullens, and he's coming off of an elbow injury or shoulder injury, whatever that injury was. They upgraded, maybe not necessarily talent only, but they upgraded as far as having quarterbacks that actually have a history of staying healthy in Sudfeld, in Rosen, and obviously with Trey as well. So I think it's simple as, why do we need another backup quarterback that is coming off of an injury when all we need is reliability, and Nick Mullens isn't reliable as far as being able to be on the field. And I think it's as simple as that. All the in-depth breakdowns about how he plays and all this kind of stuff, the goal was to never have him be on the field in the first place. He's an undrafted quarterback that was just there to kind of help Kyle Shanahan coach the room because, he's a coach. That's pretty much what Nick Mullens was. Looked good in a hat, understands the playbook, and when he plays, unfortunately, he got outclassed.
I don't look at it that way. I don't feel like he got exposed or that his play dipped. I mean, I think he was pretty much the same guy in 2018 that he was in 2020. I mean, in 2018, he completed 64% of his passes. In 2020, he completed 64% of his passes. In 2018, he threw 13 touchdowns and 10 picks. Last year, he threw 12 and 12. I mean, his rating in 2018 was 90. It was 80. It was kind of similar. I mean, I'm sure if you looked, the team was a little bit different that was around him, but I think the expectations were different. I mean, when he became the starter in 2018, the season was over and they were out of it. When he became the starter in 2020, everyone was hoping that he could keep him afloat. And I think what we saw was he was never a franchise quarterback. He was never going to be a franchise quarterback. The only way he could succeed is if everyone around him was good and healthy, and they were carrying him the way that Jimmy got carried a lot of the times in 2020, 2019. So the team fell apart. And then I think the biggest thing is that this is what happens when you spend $27 million a year on one player and he's not there. I mean, you're not going to win when you have all that money tied up in one guy who's hurt. So you could blame it on Nick Mullens or you could blame it on whoever, but that's what's going to happen. In 2018, Jimmy Garoppolo was making 15% of the cap. He got hurt. They were screwed. And last year he was making darn near 13. So you could say that that Nick Mullens got exposed. Yeah, if you thought he was going to end up being a franchise quarterback, he definitely got exposed. I thought he could have been a high-level backup. But even then, that the Niners just let him go, and I think they upgraded him. To go from him to Josh Rosen is an upgrade. So I just want to say I don't think the Nick Mullens story is over. He still is 5th all time in yards per game. He still has only started about 16 games in his career. He's still 25. So I don't think his story's over. Let's see where he's at when he's 30.
Sounds good.
Carries. Anyway, that was the official Nick Mullens discussion. Maybe the last one we'll ever have on this thing. Hold on. There's one little thing from Brett Lackey saying Waruna.
Brett.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Waruna, the
great
chat
show.
is talking up the swag, my dude. You are by far officially the best dressed on stage right now, man.
I had to dress up to the occasion.
Suneil and Nick always bring the fire. I like it. Like if I let Suneil and Nick go first, and if they disagree with me and I say how I disagree, I know they're coming at me for the next 5 minutes. Okay, fine. But I like that. That's what makes the show entertaining. I appreciate that. That was cool. Nick, it's great to have you back, man.
Happy to be back. I'm happy to be back with y'all.
And Waruna, great job. Great debut.
Thank you very much.
You really added a lot. This was a hell of
Attaboy,
a show.
Waruna.
We're going to wrap it up now, and I'm going to be on again with Jesse Naylor in a half an hour because you haven't seen enough of me today. Late night. Talking real.
Late night.
Just get the Courvoisier and just sink into your waterbed and listen to the sweet sounds of me and Jesse talking football. See you guys. Thank you.
All right.
I got to work on less awkward endings.